I sold my house, my truck, everything I spent 40 years building, for a girl who smiled at me like I was the only man in the world. She was 24, I was 65, and I thought that made me lucky. I was sitting in my living room in Kentucky on a Tuesday night when I saw her face. The house was too quiet. It had been too quiet for 12 years, ever since my ex-wife took half of everything and left me with the other half I didn't know what to do with. The divorce wasn't messy. It was worse than that. It was just sad. She told me one morning, over coffee, that she didn't love me anymore. Not in a mean way, just honest. Like she was telling me the milk had gone bad. My daughter Emily stopped calling about 6 months before that night. I'd tried reaching out, left voicemails, sent texts asking how she was doing. She'd reply with 1 or 2 words, busy, fine, talk soon. But soon never came. I understood. I was just the old man who drove trucks for 40 years and had nothing interesting to say anymore. I'd spent most of my life on the road. Now I was home and I didn't know what to do with myself. I watched TV. I walked to the diner on Main Street. I came home. That was my life. So I downloaded this app. I'm not even sure why. Boredom maybe. Loneliness definitely. I just needed to feel like someone out there might care if I existed. I scrolled through faces for about an hour. Most of them looked tired, worn down, like they'd been on the app too long and stopped trying to look happy. Then Zynette's picture came up. She had dark eyes and this smile that didn't look rehearsed. It didn't look like she was trying to sell me anything. She just looked real, 24 years old, from Davao City, Philippines. I hovered over her picture. I almost swiped past. What would a girl like that want with a guy like me? I was 65. My back hurt most mornings. I had gray hair and a face that had seen too much highway. But then a message popped up before I could decide. You look kind, it said. I stared at those 3 words for a long time. Kind. Nobody had called me that in years. My ex-wife used to call me distant. My daughter called me absent. But kind? That was new. I didn't know what to say back. My fingers felt clumsy on the phone. Finally, I typed, "Thank you. You have a beautiful smile." She replied instantly, "Thank you. Where are you from?" "Kentucky. Small town. Nothing special. I think everywhere is special if you are there." I read that line 3 times. Was she serious? Was this how young people talked now? Or was she just being nice? I didn't know, but I felt something in my chest I hadn't felt in years. It was stupid. I knew it was stupid. But I kept typing. "What about you? What's Davao like?" "It is hot, very busy, lots of noise, but I like it. It is home." "Do you work?" "Not right now. It is hard to find good jobs here." "I am looking." "What did you do before?" "I worked in a store, selling clothes, but it closed last year." "I'm sorry." "It is okay. I will find something." "What do you do?" "I'm retired. I used to drive trucks." "Wow. You must have seen many places." "Yeah, all over the country. 40 years on the road. That sounds beautiful. I would like to travel someday." "Maybe you will. Maybe, if I am lucky." We talked for 3 hours that night. She asked about my day, about my work, about what I liked to do. I told her about the routes I used to drive. The stretch through Montana where you could see for miles. The diners in Oklahoma where they knew my order before I sat down. The sunrises I'd see coming through the Appalachian Mountains. She said it sounded beautiful. She said I sounded interesting. Nobody had said that to me in years. The next morning, there was a message waiting when I woke up. "Good morning, Lowell. I hope you slept well." I stared at my phone. "Good morning." Nobody had said good morning to me in months. I typed back quickly. "Good morning. I slept okay. How about you?" "I am good. I was thinking about you." "You were?" "Yes. Your stories. They make me want to see America. You should come visit someday. Maybe. It is expensive to travel." "Yeah, I know." We talked every day after that. Every morning when I woke up. Every night before bed, she sent me pictures of her day. The market where she bought vegetables, the street food vendors, her small apartment with its single window. She sent me voice messages, and her accent made everything sound softer, gentler. She laughed at my stories about truck stops and crazy drivers. She asked questions like she actually wanted to know the answers, not just being polite, actually interested. One week in, she sent me a selfie. She was smiling, holding up a mango. "I bought this today. It made me think of you," the message said. "Why did a mango make you think of me?" I wrote back. "Because it is sweet, like you." I felt my chest tighten. This girl, this beautiful young girl, was calling me sweet. Me, a 65-year-old man with bad knees and nothing to offer. 2 weeks in, I wasn't just chatting anymore. I was planning, thinking about her all day, checking my phone every 10 minutes to see if she'd written. I started imagining what it would be like to meet her in person, what her voice would sound like without the distance, what it would feel like to hold her hand. She called me one night, a real call. Not a voice message, a call. I answered on the first ring. "Lowell?" Her voice was soft, nervous. "Hey, yeah, it's me." "Hi." "Hi." We both laughed. It was awkward and perfect. "I wanted to hear your voice," she said. "The real voice, not just typing." "I'm glad you called." "Me too." She paused. "Lowell, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you think you would ever want to meet me? In person?" My hand started shaking. "You want me to come there?" "Yes, I want to see you. I want to know if this is real, if you are really this kind, or if it is just the internet making us feel close." "I'm real," I said. "I promise." "Then come, please. I want to meet you." I looked around my empty living room. The TV was on mute. There was a pizza box on the coffee table from 2 days ago. What was keeping me here? What did I have to lose? "Okay," I said. "I'll come." "Really? Really?" She made a sound like she was crying, happy crying. "When?" "I don't know. Soon. I need to figure out the flight and everything." Okay. I'm so happy, Lowell. You do not know how happy I am." After we hung up, I sat there for a long time. Then I opened my laptop and started searching flights. Davao City, Philippines, 23 hours with layovers, $1,500 round trip. I stared at the screen. This was crazy. I barely knew this girl, but I clicked purchase anyway. 3 weeks from today, I'd be landing in the Philippines. I didn't tell Emily. I didn't tell Tom, my realtor. I didn't tell anyone. I just bought the ticket and told myself this was the craziest thing I'd ever done. But when Zynette sent me a message that night that said, "I cannot wait to see you. I am counting the days," I didn't feel crazy. I felt alive. For the first time in 12 years, I felt alive. The flight was brutal. 23 hours with layovers in Los Angeles and Manila. My back was screaming by hour 15. I couldn't sleep, couldn't get comfortable. I kept thinking about turning around at every stop. This was insane. Flying halfway across the world for a girl I'd never met. But then I'd look at my phone and see her messages. "How is the flight? Are you okay?" I'm so excited I cannot sleep. And I'd feel that pull again. That need to see if this was real. I landed in Davao at 3 in the morning. The humidity hit me the second I stepped off the plane. It was like walking into a wet blanket. I was sweating through my shirt before I even made it to immigration. The airport was small, chaotic. People everywhere, families sleeping on benches, taxi drivers shouting in Tagalog. I got through customs and walked toward the exit. My heart was pounding. What if she didn't show up? What if she took one look at me and changed her mind? What if the pictures I'd sent were too generous and she was disappointed? Then I saw her. She was standing near the exit doors in a yellow dress. She was holding a piece of cardboard with my name written in neat letters. Lowell. When our eyes met, her face lit up. Not a polite smile, a real smile. She ran toward me and threw her arms around my neck. "You are here," she whispered against my shoulder. "You are really here." "I'm here," I said. I was too stunned to say anything else. She pulled back and looked at me, really looked at me. You are more handsome than your pictures, I laughed. You don't have to lie. I am not lying. Come, let me take you home. Home. I'd lived in Kentucky my whole life and never heard that word sound so warm. She took my bag like it weighed nothing and led me outside. The heat hit me again. It was suffocating. A tricycle pulled up, one of those motorcycle sidecars. I barely fit. My knees were pressed against the metal frame. Zynette squeezed in beside me, laughing. Sorry, it is small. It's okay, I said, even though I was pretty sure I'd lost circulation in my left leg. We drove through dark streets. Streetlights flickered. Dogs wandered in the road. Everything smelled like exhaust and grilled meat. Zynette kept glancing at me, smiling. Are you okay? She asked. Yeah, just tired. I'm sorry it is so far. My apartment is in Torrell. It is cheaper there. It's fine. I'm just happy to be here. She squeezed my hand. Her hand was small and warm. We pulled up to a narrow street lined with small houses. The tricycle stopped in front of a cement building. 2 stories. Chipped paint. Laundry hanging from every window. Zynette paid the driver and led me up a steep staircase. She unlocked a door on the 2nd floor and turned on the light. It was one room. Cement walls. A single fan spinning slowly overhead. A mattress on the floor with a thin blanket. A small table. A single burner for cooking. But she'd cleaned everything. There were candles on the table. She'd put flowers in a plastic bottle. She looked at me nervously. I am sorry it is not much. I set my bag down. It's perfect. You are just being nice. I'm not. It's perfect. And I meant it. Because she was there. And that made it perfect. She smiled. Are you hungry? I can make you something. I'm okay. Just tired. Then sleep. The bed is for you. Where will you sleep? I can sleep on the floor. No, we'll share. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she nodded. We lay down together on that thin mattress. The fan barely moved the hot air. I could hear everything. Voices from the street. Music from a neighbor's radio. A baby crying somewhere nearby. But Zynette was curled up beside me, her head on my chest. I am so happy you are here, she whispered. Me too. Are you scared? Of what? That this is not real. That maybe we will not feel the same in person. I thought about it. A little. Me too. She lifted her head and looked at me. But I think it is real. I think we are real. I kissed her forehead. Yeah, I think so too. She made me adobo the next morning. I woke up to the smell of garlic and soy sauce. She was crouched in front of the single burner, stirring a pot. I sat up and watched her. She looked back and smiled. Good morning. Good morning. Did you sleep okay? Better than I have in months. Good. I am making breakfast. Chicken adobo. It is very Filipino. I hope you like it. I'm sure I will. She brought over 2 plates and sat beside me on the floor. We ate with forks. The chicken was tender, and the sauce was sweet and salty. It was the best thing I'd eaten in years, not because it was fancy, but because she'd made it for me. This is amazing, I said. She beamed. Really? Really. We spent the next few days just being together. She took me to the market and held my hand while we walked. People stared. I noticed. Old white guy. Young Filipina. I'd seen this story before. I knew what they were thinking. But Zynette didn't seem to care. She introduced me to vendors like I was someone important. This is Lowell. He is from America. He is visiting me. One older woman selling mangoes smiled at me. You are very lucky. She is a good girl. I know, I said. Zynette taught me basic Tagalog words. Salamat. Thank you. Kumusta. How are you? Maganda. Beautiful. She laughed every time I tried to pronounce them. Your accent is terrible, she said. I know. I'm trying. It is okay. I think it is cute. We walked to Roxas Avenue one evening and watched the sunset. The sky turned orange and pink. People were jogging. Families were having picnics. Zynette leaned her head on my shoulder. Do you like it here? She asked. I love it here. Really? You are not just saying that? I'm not. I love it. What do you love about it? I thought about it. I love that I'm with you. She turned and kissed me. Right there on the boulevard with people walking past. She didn't care. When she pulled back, her eyes were wet. I do not want you to leave, she whispered. I don't want to leave either. Then stay longer, please, just a few more weeks. I only bought a 2-week ticket. Can you change it? I looked at her face, the way she was looking at me, like I was the only thing that mattered. Yeah, I can change it. She threw her arms around me. Thank you. Thank you. I am so happy. That night, lying on the mattress in the dark, I started thinking, really thinking, what was I going back to? An empty house. No one waiting for me. No one who cared if I came or went. Here, I had Zynette. I had someone who smiled when I walked into the room. Someone who made me feel like I mattered. I could sell the house, take my pension, move here permanently. The idea should have scared me, but it didn't. It felt right. It felt like finally, after 65 years, I'd found something worth staying for. One evening, about a week into my trip, Zynette sat down beside me on the mattress. She'd been quiet all day, distant. I'd noticed but didn't want to push. She kept looking at her hands, picking at her nails. Lowell, I need to tell you something. My stomach dropped. Here it comes, I thought. She's going to end this. Tell me it was a mistake. That I should go home. What is it? She didn't look up. My lease here. It is ending soon. I waited. She didn't say anything else. Okay, so what will you do? She shrugged. Her voice was small. I do not know. Maybe I find another room. Maybe I stay with my mother for a while. You'd have to leave this place? Yes, in 1 month. The owner, he is selling the building. Everyone has to go. That's terrible. It is okay. I will figure something out. But her face said it wasn't okay. She looked scared. Do you have money saved? She shook her head. Not much. I have been looking for work, but it is hard here. There are not many jobs, and the ones that exist, they pay so little. I could see the embarrassment on her face, the shame. She wasn't asking me for anything. She was just telling me the truth. And somehow, that made me want to help even more, because she wasn't manipulating. She was just scared. How much do you need? I asked. She looked up. What do you mean, for a new place? How much would you need? Lowell, no. I am not telling you this because I want money. I know, but I'm asking how much. She bit her lip. I do not know. Maybe 10,000 pesos for deposit. Maybe another 5,000 for first month. But it is too much. I will find a way. I did the math in my head. About $300. I spent that on groceries in a month back home. I'll help you. No, Lowell, you cannot do that. Why not? Because it is too much. You are already here. You already spent so much money to come visit me. I cannot ask for more. You're not asking. I'm offering. Tears formed in her eyes. You are too good to me. I do not deserve this. You deserve more than this. She leaned her head on my shoulder. What will I do when you leave? I will miss you so much. I do not know how I will survive without you. That's when the words came out. I didn't even think about them. They just came. What if I didn't leave? She lifted her head. What do you mean? What if I stayed here? With you? Lowell, you cannot stay. You have your life in America, your house, your family. My house is empty. My family doesn't talk to me. I don't have anything there, Zynette. But here, I have you. She was crying now. Real tears. You cannot be serious. I am serious. I could sell the house, move here permanently, be with you. But your home. This feels more like home than Kentucky ever did. She stared at me. You would really do that? You would give up everything for me? I would give up everything for you. She buried her face in my chest and sobbed. I held her and stared at the ceiling. My heart was pounding. What was I saying? Sell everything? Move to a foreign country? For a woman I'd known a month? It was insane. But looking at her, feeling her against me, It didn't feel insane. It felt like the first real decision I'd made in years. When she finally stopped crying, she looked up at me. "Are you sure?" she whispered. "I'm sure." "What if it does not work? What if you hate it here?" "I won't hate it. I'll be with you." She kissed me, soft at first, then deeper. When she pulled back, she said, "I love you, Lowell." My chest felt tight. No one had said those words to me in over a decade. "I love you too." "Say it again." "I love you." She smiled through her tears. "I cannot believe this is real. I cannot believe you are real." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there listening to her breathe. I kept thinking about what I'd promised: selling the house, leaving America, starting over at 65. It should have terrified me, but all I felt was relief. Relief that I finally had a purpose. Relief that someone needed me. When I got back to the hotel the next morning to grab some things, I called Tom, my realtor. We'd known each other 15 years. He'd sold me the house when I first bought it. "Tom, I want to list the house." There was a pause. "You're selling?" "Yeah." "Lowell, that's a big decision. What brought this on?" "I'm retiring, moving overseas." "Overseas where?" "The Philippines." Another pause. Longer this time. "Lowell, I'm going to ask you something as a friend. Is there a woman involved?" I hesitated. "Yeah, there is." "How long have you known her?" "Long enough." "Lowell, I've known you a long time, and I've seen this story before. Guys your age, lonely, they meet someone young overseas, and Tom just lists the house. I'm trying to look out for you here. I know what I'm doing." "Do you?" "Because this sounds Tom. List. The house." He sighed. "All right, it's your call. But if you change your mind, I won't." "Okay, I'll get the paperwork started." I hung up and stared at my phone. I knew what he was thinking. I knew what everyone would think. Old fool, getting scammed. But they didn't know Zynette. They didn't see how she looked at me. They didn't understand what it felt like to finally matter to someone. A week later, I met Zynette at Roxas Avenue. We were walking along the boulevard. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and purple. I stopped walking. "I did it," I said. She looked at me. "Did what?" "I listed my house. I'm selling it. I'm moving here." Her hands went to her mouth. "Lowell, no. That is too much." "It's not too much. It's what I want. But what if this does not work? What if you regret it?" "I won't regret it. I regret every year I spent alone in that house. I won't regret being with you." She threw her arms around me right there on the boulevard. People walked past us. She didn't care. Neither did I. "You would do this for me?" she whispered against my neck. "I would do anything for you." She pulled back and looked at me. Her eyes were wet. "I love you so much, Lowell. You do not know how much I love you." "I love you too." We kissed while the sun went down, and for the first time in 12 years, I felt like my life had meaning. The house sold in 3 weeks. I couldn't believe how fast it went. Some young couple with a baby. They loved the backyard. $62,000 after closing costs and fees. I'd bought it 30 years ago for $40,000. It wasn't much in the grand scheme of things, but it was everything I had, every dollar I'd saved, every year of work, all in one number. I wired $20,000 to the Philippines the day after the sale closed. Zynette and I found a 2-bedroom condo near SM Lanang. It had air conditioning, a real kitchen, a balcony overlooking the city. When she saw it, she cried, "This is too much, Lowell." "It's not too much. It's ours. But the rent, I can afford it. Don't worry." She walked through the empty rooms, touching the walls. "I have never lived in a place like this." "Well, now you do." She threw her arms around me. "Thank you. Thank you so much." She decorated it over the next week. Curtains from the market, candles, little plants she bought from a street vendor. It started feeling like a home. Our home. She invited her mother and younger brother over for dinner one night. I was nervous. I wanted them to like me. I wanted them to see that I was serious about Zynette. Her mother was short and quiet, maybe 50 years old but looked older. Her brother was 17, skinny kid, didn't make eye contact. We ate pancit and lumpia at the small dining table Zynette had found at a second-hand store. Her mother kept staring at me. Not mean, just curious, like she was trying to figure out what I was doing here. "So you are from America?" she asked in careful English. "Yes, ma'am, Kentucky. And you are staying here now?" "Yes, ma'am. I'm retired. I sold my house back home." She nodded slowly. Her face didn't change. "Zynette is my only daughter. I worry about her." "I understand. I'll take care of her. I promise." She looked at Zynette, then back at me. "She has had a hard life. No father, no money. I could not give her much." "She turned out perfect," I said. Zynette smiled at me from across the table. Her mother's expression softened just a little. "Okay, we will see." Her brother didn't say much, just ate and looked at his phone. Before they left, I handed her mother an envelope. She opened it and saw the 2,000 pesos inside. She tried to refuse. No, this is too much. Please, it's just a gift. For dinner, for raising such a wonderful daughter." She looked at the money, then at me. Then she smiled. It was the first real smile I'd seen from her all night. "You are very kind," she said. After they left, Zynette hugged me tight. "Thank you for being so good to my family. Of course. My mother likes you, I can tell." "You think so?" "Yes. She would not have taken the money if she did not trust you." I felt good about that. I felt like I was doing something right for once. But the requests started coming after that dinner. Small at first, so small I barely noticed. Zynette came to me one morning while I was drinking coffee on the balcony. The city was loud below us, jeepneys honking, vendors shouting. "Lowell, I need to ask you something." I looked up. "What is it?" "My brother, he needs money for school fees. The semester is starting soon." "How much?" "Just 5,000 pesos. I know it is a lot. But if he does not pay, he cannot go to school." 5,000 pesos. About $100. "That's fine. I'll transfer it." "Are you sure?" "Of course. Education is important." She kissed my cheek. "Thank you. You do not know what this means to us." A week later, it was something else. Zynette came home from the market looking stressed. "What's wrong?" I asked. "The landlord. He says he needs 3 months' rent up front now. New policy." "I am sorry, Lowell. I did not know." "How much?" 30,000 pesos. I did the math. About $600. My chest felt tight, but I nodded. "Okay, I'll pay it." "Are you sure? It is so much money. It's fine. I don't want us to lose this place." She hugged me. "You are the best man I have ever known." Then her cousin got sick. Hospital bills, 15,000 pesos. Then her mother's roof leaked during a storm. Repairs, 10,000 pesos. Then her brother needed a laptop for his online classes, 12,000 pesos. Every time, I said yes. Every time, Zynette thanked me with tears in her eyes. She'd hold me and tell me I was saving her family. I told myself this was temporary. Things would stabilize. Her family wouldn't always need help. This was just bad timing, a rough patch. But one night, I couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong. I opened my banking app on my phone. The screen glowed in the dark. I looked at the transactions. 20,000 for the condo deposit, 30,000 for rent, 5,000 for her brother's tuition, 15,000 for her cousin's hospital, 10,000 for her mother's roof, 12,000 for the laptop, more for groceries, more for utilities, more for things I couldn't even remember agreeing to. I added it up. $35,000. I'd transferred $35,000 in 3 months. My hands started shaking. I looked over at Zynette sleeping beside me. She looked peaceful, innocent, like she didn't have a care in the world. I told myself I was being paranoid. This was what families did. They helped each other. This was what love looked like. taking care of each other. But deep down, something was starting to crack. I just wasn't ready to look at it yet. I put the phone down and stared at the ceiling until the sun came up. Zynette started going out more. At first, it was just during the day. She'd say she was meeting friends, shopping at the market, looking for work. I didn't think anything of it. Everyone needs space. Everyone needs friends. But then it became nights. She'd get dressed up around 8. Makeup, perfume, tight jeans, the kind she never wore around the condo. "Where are you going?" I asked one evening. She was standing in front of the bathroom mirror, putting on lipstick. "Just to see some friends. We are going to have drinks." "Which friends?" She glanced at me in the mirror. "Just girls from school. You do not know them." "Okay. What time will you be back?" She shrugged. "I do not know. Maybe midnight? All right. Be safe." She kissed me quickly on the cheek and left. I sat on the couch and turned on the TV. Some Filipino drama I couldn't understand. I watched the actors cry and yell at each other. Midnight came and went. 1 a.m., 2 a.m. She came home at 2:30. I heard the door unlock. She walked in smelling like cigarettes and sweet perfume. I was still sitting on the couch. She jumped a little when she saw me. "You are still up?" she said. "Yeah, I was worried." "Why worried?" "I told you I was with friends." "I know. It's just late." She sat down beside me. "Lowell, you do not need to worry about me. I am not a child." "I'm not saying you are. You do not trust me?" That question felt like a trap. I didn't know how to answer without starting a fight. "I trust you." "Then why are you upset?" "I'm not upset. I was just worried. That's all." She stood up. "I'm going to bed. I am tired." "Okay." She walked to the bedroom and closed the door. I sat there alone in the living room until 3 a.m. The TV kept playing. Actors kept crying. I told myself I was overreacting. She was young. She had a life outside of me. That was normal. That was healthy. I couldn't expect her to stay home every night just because I was old and boring. But it kept happening. 2 nights a week became 3, then 4, then almost every night. She'd come home late, go straight to the bedroom, and fall asleep without saying much. I started noticing other things too. Her phone, it was always face down. If it buzzed while we were together, she'd grab it quickly and put it in her purse. If I walked into the room while she was on it, she'd lock the screen immediately. "Who are you texting?" I asked once. "Just a friend." "Which friend?" "Does it matter?" "I'm just curious." She looked at me. "Lowell, why are you being like this?" "Like what?" "Jealous. Controlling." "I'm not being controlling. I'm just asking." "Well, stop asking. I am allowed to have friends." I didn't push it. I didn't want to be that guy. The jealous old man who couldn't let his girlfriend have a life. But my gut kept screaming at me. Something was wrong. I just couldn't prove it. One night, I walked past the bedroom and heard her talking quietly. The door was cracked. I stopped and listened. She was speaking in Tagalog. I didn't understand most of it, but I heard her laugh. It was a different laugh than the one she used with me. Softer, more familiar. I knocked on the door. The talking stopped. She opened it a few seconds later. "Who were you talking to?" I asked. "My cousin." "Which cousin?" "Does it matter?" "My girl cousin. She is having problems with her boyfriend." "Oh, okay. Is she all right?" "She will be fine." "Why are you asking so many questions?" "I'm not. I just heard you talking and you wanted to check on me like I am a child?" "No, I need space, Lowell. I cannot breathe when you are always watching me." She closed the door. I stood there in the hallway feeling like I'd done something wrong. But I hadn't. I'd just asked a question. Why did that make me the bad guy? I went back to the living room and sat down, checked my phone, my bank account. $12,000 left. I'd sold everything I owned. 40 years of work, gone in 4 months, and I was running out of money faster than I'd ever thought possible. But it was more than the money. It was the way she looked at me now, like I was a burden, like I was in the way. I'd moved halfway across the world to be with her, and now she couldn't stand to be in the same room as me for more than an hour. One night, her phone was sitting on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. It buzzed. I glanced at it. The preview showed a message from someone named Carlo. The text said, "Miss you, babe." My chest went tight. I picked up the phone. My hands were shaking. I knew her passcode. I'd seen her type it 100 times. I unlocked it, opened the message thread. My vision blurred. The messages went back months, long before I'd even arrived in Davao. There were pictures, Zynette and a young guy, maybe 30 years old, good-looking, muscular. They were at the beach together, at a restaurant, in bed. I scrolled through the messages. Each one felt like a punch to the gut. "How much did you get this time?" Carlo had written 2 weeks ago. 15,000. I told him my cousin was sick. Zynette had replied. "Good, keep pushing. How much does he have left?" "I think maybe 30,000 total, maybe less. Get as much as you can before he runs out. Then we are done with this. I know, just a few more months, then we are free. I miss you, babe. When can I see you?" "Tonight. I will tell him I am going out with friends." "Perfect. I love you." "I love you too." I sat down on the floor. I couldn't breathe. I kept scrolling. There were more. So many more. Messages about me, about how clueless I was, about how easy it was to get money from me. One message from Zynette said, "He actually thinks I love him. It is sad." Carlo replied, "As long as he keeps paying, who cares what he thinks?" Another message, "He asked me where I was last night. I think he's getting suspicious. Just keep lying. Old guys like him always believe what they want to believe." I heard the shower turn off. I put the phone back on the counter, exactly where it had been. I walked to the couch and sat down. My whole body felt numb. Zynette came out a few minutes later wrapped in a towel, hair wet. She was humming. "Good morning," she said cheerfully. I didn't say anything. I just held up my phone. I'd taken screenshots of everything. Her face changed. The smile vanished. She stared at me. The towel slipped a little. She grabbed it. "Lowell, don't. Let me explain." "Explain what?" "That you've been lying to me from the beginning? That you've been using me for money while you had a boyfriend the whole time?" She stood there frozen. Her mouth opened, then closed. "You were not supposed to see that." "I wasn't supposed to see it? That's what you're going with?" "It is not what you think." "Then what is it? Tell me. Make me understand how this isn't exactly what it looks like." She didn't say anything. She just stared at the floor. Her hands were shaking. I stood up. My legs felt weak. "Was any of it real?" I asked. My voice was shaking. "Did you ever actually care about me? Even a little? Or was it all just an act?" She looked up. For a second I thought I saw something in her eyes. Guilt, maybe. Or pity. But then it was gone. Her face went cold. "I am sorry, Lowell," she said quietly. "That's it? You're sorry? What do you want me to say?" "I want you to tell me the truth. Just once. Tell me the truth." She walked past me to the bedroom. She didn't look at me. She got dressed. Jeans. T-shirt. She grabbed her purse. She grabbed some clothes and stuffed them in a bag. She walked to the door. Zynette. She stopped but didn't turn around. Was any of it real? She opened the door. "I am sorry," she said again. And then she left. The door closed. I stood there in the condo I'd paid for, the furniture I'd bought, the life I'd built around a lie. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just sat down on the couch and stared at the wall until the sun went down. She never came back. Not that night. Not the next day. Not ever. I stayed in the condo for 2 more weeks, mostly because I didn't know where else to go. I couldn't afford it much longer. The rent was due again. I had $8,000 left in my account. That was it. 40 years of work, a house, a truck, a life, all of it gone. I thought about calling Emily, but I couldn't face it. I'd told her I was retiring abroad to find peace, to finally be happy. Now I was just another stupid old man who got scammed by a girl young enough to be his granddaughter. She'd probably seen it coming. Everyone probably had. Everyone except me. I started walking around Davao at night. I couldn't stay in the condo. It smelled like her perfume, her shampoo. Everything reminded me of her. I'd walk for hours, through the streets of Toril, down to Roxas Avenue, past the places we'd been together. I'd see other foreign men with young Filipinas, holding hands, laughing, going into restaurants. I wondered how many of them were living the same lie I had been. How many of them would wake up one day and realize it was all fake. How many of them would lose everything before they figured it out. One night, I walked down to the seawall and sat on the concrete. The water was black and endless. Waves crashed against the rocks. I watched them for hours. I wasn't suicidal. I want to be clear about that. I wasn't thinking about jumping in or anything like that. But I understood something sitting there. I understood why some men just disappeared out here, why they gave up. It wasn't the money. Money could be earned back. It was the emptiness. The realization that you'd been so desperate for love, so desperate to matter to someone, that you'd convinced yourself a lie was real. And that desperation, that need, it had cost you everything. I kept replaying everything in my head. The messages, the late nights, the phone always face down, the way she'd deflect every time I asked questions, the way her family suddenly needed money for everything. The signs had been there from the beginning. I just hadn't wanted to see them, because seeing them would have meant admitting I was alone, and I couldn't handle that. So I'd chosen the lie. One night, I was sitting at a small bar near the condo. I wasn't drinking, just sitting there nursing a Coke, thinking. A guy about my age sat down next to me, Australian accent, gray hair, wearing a tropical shirt. "Rough night, mate?" he asked. I shrugged. "Something like that." "Girl trouble?" "How'd you know?" He laughed. "It's always girl trouble out here. That's the only reason guys like us look the way you look right now." "What happened?" I told him. "Not everything, just enough." He listened and nodded. When I finished, he ordered another beer. "Yeah," he said. "I've seen that story a dozen times. Hell, I almost lived it myself 5 years ago." "How'd you avoid it?" "I didn't fall in love. That's the trick. You can have fun out here. You can enjoy the company. You can take care of someone if you want. But the second you start thinking it's real love, the second you start selling houses and moving countries, you're finished. So what's the point then?" He shrugged. "The point is you keep your eyes open. You protect yourself. You don't put yourself in a position where one person can take everything from you." Yeah. Wish someone had told me that 4 months ago. Would you have listened? Probably not. I sat on that seawall a lot over those 2 weeks. I'd watch the sun come up, watch people start their day, vendors setting up their stalls, kids walking to school in their uniforms, jeepneys filling up with passengers. Life just kept moving. Nobody cared that I'd lost everything. Nobody cared that my heart was broken. Nobody cared that I'd been stupid enough to believe a 24-year-old girl actually loved me. And that was okay. The world didn't owe me anything. I realized something sitting there watching the water. I hadn't been in love with Zynette. Not really. I'd been in love with not being alone. I'd been in love with the idea that someone wanted me, that someone needed me, that I was still worth something to somebody. And she'd seen that. She'd seen exactly what I needed and given it to me just long enough to take everything I had. But the worst part wasn't losing the money. It wasn't even losing her. It was losing the version of myself that believed I was still worth loving. That hurt more than anything. I didn't go back to Kentucky. I couldn't. There was nothing to go back to. No house, no savings, just a pension check every month that barely covered food. So I moved to a cheaper place in Toril, a single room above a sari-sari store. It cost 3,000 pesos a month, about $60. It was hot. The walls were so thin I could hear every conversation in the building. The bathroom was shared. There was no air conditioning, just a small fan that barely worked, but it was all I could afford now. I started teaching English online. I'd seen ads for it on Facebook, companies that hired native speakers to teach kids in China. All you needed was a laptop and decent internet. I bought a cheap laptop at a pawn shop, got a data plan, signed up with one of the companies, $20 an hour. I could do 3 or 4 hours a day if I was lucky. Some days more, some days none. It wasn't much, but it kept me fed. It kept me alive. One afternoon, about a month after everything fell apart, I saw Zynette. I was walking through the market buying vegetables for dinner, tomatoes, onions, a little bit of chicken, and there she was, at a fruit stand. She was with a guy, Carlo, I assumed. He had his arm around her waist. They were laughing. She looked happy, really happy, happier than she'd ever looked with me. Our eyes met for a second across the market. I stopped walking. She saw me. Her smile faded, just for a moment. Then she looked away quickly and kept moving, pulled Carlo in the other direction. I stood there in the middle of the market with a bag of tomatoes in my hand. People pushed past me. Vendors shouted prices. I waited for the anger to come, the rage, the urge to confront her, to yell, to demand an apology, but nothing came. I just felt tired. I saw her a few more times after that. Davao isn't that big, at least not the parts where people like us lived. Always with Carlo, always smiling, always looking like she didn't have a care in the world. The first time, I looked away, walked in the other direction. The second time, I just nodded. She never acknowledged me. She never waved, never said hello. I was a ghost to her, and maybe that was fair. Maybe that's what I'd been to her all along. I wasn't bitter. I wanted to be. I wanted to hate her. But I was just done. I stopped checking my bank account every day. I stopped replaying the messages in my head. I stopped wondering what I could have done differently. There was nothing I could have done. This was always going to end this way. I was always going to lose, because I'd wanted something that didn't exist. I'd wanted real love, and she'd given me a transaction disguised as love. I started going to a small cafe near the river. They had good coffee and decent Wi-Fi. I'd sit there for hours and work, teaching classes, grading assignments. Between classes, I'd write. I wrote about what happened, not for revenge, not to post online or warn other people, just to get it out of me, to put words to the thing that had broken me so completely. It helped. A little. One afternoon, an old Filipino man sat down across from me at my table. He looked about 70, maybe older, gray hair, kind eyes, weathered face. "You okay, brother?" he asked in English. I looked up from my laptop. "Yeah, I'm okay." "You look sad." I laughed a little. "I've had a rough few months." "Woman trouble? How does everyone know?" He smiled. "I am old. I have seen many things. Many men come here looking for love. Many men get hurt. You are not the first. You will not be the last." "Yeah, well, I'm one of them." He nodded slowly. "But you are still here. I don't have anywhere else to go. Maybe that is okay. Maybe being here is enough." I thought about that. Maybe. He stood up to leave, put a hand on my shoulder. "We all make mistakes, brother. But you are still here. You are still alive. That means something." I watched him walk away, down the street toward the market. I thought about his words. "You are still here." I wasn't the same man who landed in Davao 8 months ago. That man had been hopeful, naive, desperate to believe that someone could love him. That man had believed in second chances, in fresh starts, in the idea that it's never too late to find happiness. This version of me knew better. I knew what people were capable of. I knew how easy it was to be used. I knew that love, real love, probably wasn't in the cards for someone like me, but I also knew I could survive. I'd lost everything. My house, my savings, my dignity, my belief that I mattered to anyone, and I was still here. I was still waking up every morning, still teaching classes, still drinking coffee by the river, still breathing. Maybe that was enough. I'd never be the man I was before Zynette. That man was gone, dead and buried in some shallow grave I couldn't even visit. But I could be someone else, someone quieter, someone more careful, someone who knew that being alone wasn't the worst thing in the world, because the worst thing, the thing that really destroyed you, was pretending you weren't alone when you were, pretending someone loved you when they didn't, pretending you mattered when you were just a wallet with a pulse. I sat in that cafe and watched the river. The sun was setting. The water turned gold and orange. Fishermen were bringing in their boats. Kids were playing on the bank. And for the first time in months, I felt something that wasn't pain. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't peace. It was just acceptance. I'd survived. That was all. I'd been broken into 1,000 pieces, and somehow I was still here, breathing, existing, moving forward one small step at a time. Maybe that was enough. Maybe survival was its own kind of victory. Maybe just being here, just refusing to give up even when everything said I should. Maybe that meant something. I finished my coffee, closed my laptop, walked back to my tiny room above the Sorry store. Tomorrow I'd teach more classes. I'd eat cheap food. I'd sit by the river again. And the day after that, I'd do it all over again. It wasn't the life I'd imagined when I sold everything. It wasn't the life I'd dreamed of when I first saw Zynette smile. But it was my life, and I was still living it. That had to count for something.